She slammed the door on Mr. Death. She wouldn't let Mr. Death in. Hello, y'all. I'm Dianna Brianne. I don't give advice, suggestions, information, recommendations. I just share with you my perspective on different topics, as is with this one. I hope you like, share, subscribe to all 5 channels. The links are pinned to the top of the comment section below. You know, I love to write poetry, and I write a lot of poetry about being older, and I've talked a lot about death from an older person's perspective, at least from my perspective. And so I've read many of those poems here on virtual media, and if you haven't heard them, go back and look for some of them. I think one was called The Old Lady and the Clocks, or The Old Lady and Mr. Death, because the old lady in the well, I wrote several versions of The Old Lady and Mr. Death, and the old lady, she was kind of ageless at a certain period of her life as an old woman, so she never really got older, and she had all these grandfather clocks like I do. This one is about 140 years old, and this one is about 100 years old, and she loved her antiques. And so the old lady and the clocks. And so I guess maybe that's me. But she would not let Mr. Death in the door. She absolutely would not let him in. And so that was what that poem was about. And if you haven't heard it, I would love for you to go back and watch those videos on the different versions of The Old Lady and Mr. Death. And so ultimately, in one of the poems, she forgot to wind her clocks. One of her clocks, and she had to keep her clocks wound to keep Mr. Death away, and otherwise he could get into her house. And so she was always peeping outside to make sure Mr. Death wasn't in the bushes or, you know, out there somewhere, and if she'd see him, she'd get back inside. Well, this one particular day, she forgot to wind one of the clocks, and he got in the house. And so she took off, and I won't tell you the rest of the poem or the story, but there's different versions of it that I created, but they're all good. And, you know, so I think a lot of times older people will think a lot about the concept of death, because it is a natural part of our involvement spiritually here. It's something that ultimately will happen. But I believe that death should happen on God's timing and no other timing. And so when Mr. Death comes to the door, I believe in slamming it shut on Mr. Death and on sickness and on any other kind of problems that try to enter into our lives. And so for me personally, and I don't recommend anything, I use prayer and fasting. Now, fasting for me can be a lot of different ways that I do it. And sometimes I do abstain from food. Other times it's abstaining from something else. My version of fasting and how I do it. Everyone is different, so I don't recommend anything to anybody else. But I do pray, I do fast, and I do seek out wisdom and the right people, professional and otherwise, to help me through it. Like I've talked about before, there's earthly angels, people doing angel work, and then there's divine angels, heavenly angels, that I believe that often step in when one of us angels here on earth can't do what we need to do. So in other words, I believe that many times we are acting in the roles of angels. We might be a doorway to someone's dream, solution, solving their problem. We could be a divine connection. You know, we often play a part in someone's lives that we don't even really know. And so in a sense, I call those divine angels, or those earthly angels. But I also personally believe in divine angels and divine connections, divine timing, divine places, divine power, divine healing. And so many people give up when they get a diagnosis. So many people get scared and they throw in the towel. And it's a normal reaction to be scared. I understand that. But when someone gets sick, we want to come from a position of strength, whether it's ourselves or someone else. We want to have people that we can lean on that are going to be strong for us if it happens to be us. And if it happens to be someone we love or someone we care about, we want to be strong, not weak, not fall apart. And so the thing is, just like with the little old lady, she refused to accept Mr. Death. It was only going to be on God's timing and not anyone else's timing. And so, and of course, that's a poem I made up. And yet, I believe that often people, instead of thinking the positive and working towards the positive, they fear the worst. And like I said, I understand that. And I think sometimes being prepared for the worst is a smart move, and then implementing the best strategies to turn that situation around, whether it's a sickness, whether it's Mr. Death, whether it's a financial issue, whether any kind of issue, especially issues that seem bigger than us. I always pray. Pray my way through it, as Grandma would say. She said, we're going to pray our way through this thing, and we're going to come out on the other side just fine. And that's how Grandma always did. She kept her positive spirit. She didn't care whether it was a diagnosis, whether it was a business problem, a financial problem, whatever that problem was. Grandma got busy and she prayed. She prayed her way and worked her way through those problems. I believe in prayer combined with right actions, right plans, right people, right connection. I believe that doctors are here to be our earthly angels, but we want the right ones. I believe that people can help us through difficult and challenging times. And I believe we have to make smart earthly decisions. And yet I also believe in the divine hand, that we, through prayer and fasting, kind of unleash power in our lives that maybe alone we don't have. And I believe in that. I truly do believe in that. And so I believe in staying positive through difficult and challenging times of any kind. I believe in not getting negative, not getting fearful, and be strong, whether it's for ourselves or for someone else. So I thought I would come on here and just talk about the power of prayer, and for me, the power of fasting, and for me, making great decisions, and for me, keeping positive through any kind of circumstances. Stay positive. From my house to yours, may God bless you. I hope you like, share, subscribe, and I hope to talk to you soon again. Bye-bye.